Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of 100 Words or Less, the podcast. I'm your host, Ray Harkins. We are at episode number 63. I'm recording this on a rainy morning here in Southern California. The June gloom has descended, even though now it's July, but, you know, you get the point. Sometimes I record these a few days before I release them, you know? So I'm going to break the illusion of me recording these like the day before I release it because, you know, that's just not what I do. Anyways, the guest this week is CEO/owner/big pimp daddy. Not like he's ever called himself that. Vince Apostal from Glad Rags Inc. and Loud and Obnoxious Clothing. And Glad Rags, that's hard to say. Glad Rags Inc. is one of the largest, continually growing screen printing businesses out here in California. And a little side note is I had a full conversation recorded with Vince months and months, maybe even over a year ago. Yeah, that was the first recording I did with my digital recorder that I take to my in-person interviews. And yeah, it fucking failed in the sense of I failed. I recorded it so terribly. And, you know, it was a learning process. So anyways, thank you, Vince, for doing this. More on him in a minute. Let's talk business. Let's talk propertyofzach.com. Our great partners. You will continue to hear about them until you visited there. And if you visited there, let me know. Let me know what you think of that site. Because, you know, if you think it sucks and everybody thinks it sucks, obviously I'm wrong. But they're a great site. I love what they do. Great content about independent music. They're doing a lot of Warped Tour coverage right now. Just really fun, yet also in-depth coverage of what we care about, which is music. So check them out. You will find great stuff there. If you would be so kind, I'm talking to you specifically, the person who has not gone to the iTunes store and given some stars to the show or reviewed the show, please do that. I would really appreciate that. We are over 100 reviews in the US store, and I don't know why I put these mythical markers in my head. You know, now I'm looking at like, oh man, that'd be great if we get like 150. That's human nature, I guess. But I really appreciate people writing sentences on the show just because it really, to me, it solidifies what people are getting out of the show. Because sometimes I don't speak to, obviously, every single one of you that downloads this show directly. So when I see that on the show, I'm like, yes, thank you. I am very vigilant about checking that. I really pay attention to that. And recently, the username Joe the Pimp Cart Pusher, shout out to him, he did something cool where he highlighted a few episodes for people to check out. Because sometimes, you know, and I'll be the first person to admit this, whenever I get into a show, and when I say a show, a podcast, I look back, I see what guests are like I'm interested in. I kind of, you know, download sporadically. But sometimes if I do see some sort of guide as to where I should dive into this, that is extremely helpful. So he highlighted a few shows, and I will highlight them here because I think they are good shows as well. Tommy Rogers from Between the Buried and Me, which to date, that is the most popular podcast I have ever done. So people seem to really, really enjoy that one and still download the shit out of it. Andrew Glover from Winds of Plague, Jonah Ray, the stand-up comedian. We had an awesome chat. Kyle Kinane, another stand-up comedian, and a on-the-rise dude. He's definitely making some moves, and, you know, so is Jonah Ray as well. So those two interviews can kind of play off one another. And then Ben Weinman from the Dillinger Escape Plan. So if you just recently got into this show, go check out those episodes. Someone else highlighted them and said they were awesome. So there you go. Tom Richfield is our editor. Normally I mention him at the end, but I said, fuck that. I'm mentioning him first. He's a great dude and helps out the show tremendously. And if you want to correspond with the show, email us, 100wordspodcast@gmail.com. I've been getting a few mailbag requests that I'm stashing for a later show. So if you have a question or some topic you want to discuss, because usually people send like, Ray, that'd be great if you talked about this. Here are my thoughts. And then I kind of summarize that and I kind of spit it out. It's a fun thing for me to do and obviously directly communicate with you, the quote-unquote listener. I was going to call people a fan, but that's such horseshit. We're just bros. I just don't know you yet. So email the show. Before we dive into the interview with Vince, I wanted to talk about a very interesting thing that I honestly wasn't expecting to encounter in my personal life. So I have a stepsister. She is from my father's third marriage. And, you know, she's a cool girl. I've hung out with her before, but I've never had a one-on-one conversation with her or hung out with her on a one-on-one basis. She's 25 years old, so she's like 7 years younger than me. And it was so strange because my father passed away about 4 years ago. I would love to hear if anybody else had a similar experience in regards to this sort of scenario. Her most formative years were spent with my father, being raised by him, because her father was living elsewhere, et cetera, et cetera. So I had one singular experience to my father, which during those years, he was just shitty. I didn't enjoy him, didn't feel loved. I just felt like he was a human that was existing in my life that I shared names with, because I'm the third and my father is the second. As I grew up, obviously, that relationship was refined and what have you, and then towards the end of his life, we were fucking solid, which I'm so thankful that was the case. But her experience was so strange because basically it was the polar opposite of what I had experienced. He was like, warm, caring. He still had elements of what I defined as my father. But it was just so strange. We talked, went to a bar. I drank ginger ale. So those of you that know that I'm straight edge, so fucking back off. We sat in a bar for like 2 hours and just kind of talked. And it was one of those things, like, it's what makes this show to me so meaningful is that just that connection, just that sort of, human-based level of understanding. And especially when you have something like that, where it's like a shared experience, i.e. what we share with sort of music and art and creation and all that type of stuff. So I don't know, there's just all those parallels that were kind of lining up for me. And it was so strange to hear a person that I know so well be described as something that was foreign to me during those same exact years that she was experiencing. So yeah, like I said, if you've ever had an experience like that where you're able to kind of trace things back through another person's point of view, I mean, honestly, I highly recommend it. It was such a cool conversation, and one that it was very meaningful to me. I left that evening being like, I was present. I felt so aware of everything that was happening and all of the words that we were using in our discussion. And I don't want to belabor the point because obviously this is something that's very personal to me, but I do feel that there is a commonality in my experience with others as well. So if you have an experience like that, share it with me because I love to hear people's perspectives. Enough of me talking. I apologize. This has taken too long. Vince is a great dude. He owns that company, Glad Rags Inc., and Loud and Obnoxious Clothing. Loud and Obnoxious is and I hate to use the word, lifestyle streetwear clothing brand, because everyone has a clothing company. That's a reality. We've had previous guests on this show that do clothing companies. Vince comes at it from, he waves the flag of the DIY mentality in ways that, many other companies eventually grow out of. They're like, okay, yeah, we don't need to wave that flag anymore. Vince and both of his companies still do that, and it's just really exciting because he's been able to make a career out of for himself out of nothing, and it's awesome to watch him grow. So if you like hockey, you'll fucking love our conversation too, because Vince is a big hockey dude. So check out my interview with him, and I'll talk to you in a minute. The idea of, obviously where I first met you was through, Century Media and Dear Life. And the thing that always impressed me about what you were trying to accomplish with that, you tend to gravitate towards people where it's just like, they seem like workers. They seem like a hard worker. And I just remember meeting you guys and then just seeing how you operated Dear Life as like a business and just really trying to make it. It was just like, okay, like this is a good dude. Like this is a person who's going to be, sort of nose to the grindstone. Like I'll try to make this work as much as possible.
Yeah, and what's funny is that really, I can almost attribute everything that we've done now. It somehow leads back to being in a band and doing the DIY thing. And literally, we wouldn't have started screen printing T-shirts if it weren't for being in a band.
Right.
Because it was a necessity. Like we needed merch, and we just got tired of going to different places locally. Like either the minimums are too high, prices are bad, and we were young at the time. Like we didn't have a ton of money to work with, like whatever we could collect between ourselves, and so that's why we actually started that. We could probably print this. We figured we could figure it out.
Yeah, we'll figure out how to do this.
We could make flyers and we could probably make shirts.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So that's how that started.
That's the inception of it.
Yeah, we just started doing that. Learning on like YouTube and like tutorials online.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It makes sense, obviously. I never think of it from the perspective of like, oh yeah, like you could probably find a tutorial on YouTube on it.
Yeah.
But that's,
No, absolutely. That, we definitely just that's how it started. Looking at tutorials, going to like the local screen printing supply stores, and just asking questions, you know.
Yeah.
And people were just definitely there's some people who are willing to just help you and give you advice and stuff. So
right.
that was awesome. But yeah, it was really just my brother and I looking on YouTube, like, okay, that's how you make a screen, and
okay,
this and that, and that's how.
Because you had no working knowledge, like
no,
you just nothing.
Not. I mean,
yeah.
Even like our dad at the time, he thought it was really fun. Like he wanted to get involved, and so he like it was like a fun project for him too to like kind of learn again. I think he screen printed. He said when he was in high school or something like that.
Oh wow, yeah. I mean, it is one of those things like screen printing and like, you know, working with your hands and like that sort of, you know, like it's an older school mentality of like, okay, like here's a product that I'm going to manufacture with my hands.
Yeah.
Even though, I mean, obviously, like, you know, the shirt is at the core of it.
Absolutely.
You're not manufacturing that, but the idea of like this image needs to get on the shirt and it needs to look good and appropriate, and there's a craftsmanship about it.
Yeah.
But and I never think about it from that perspective of like, you know, like people prior to our generation have also probably screen printed on some different capacity.
For sure.
And I always remember too, like this is more so like mid to late 90s, but like bands that were in like the total just like sort of, you know, crust punky type of, they would buy t-shirts at a thrift shop and like literally screen them like either at the show. It's just, I mean, the total shitty. I wouldn't even call it a screen. Like
it's probably a stencil.
Right. And some of them were definitely stencils, but it's like that they would just do that. So it's like you'd buy the shirt and have like some random Italian restaurant on the front and like the band logo on the back. And I was like, that's brilliant. Like they're buying those shirts for like $2 a piece.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's funny. But yeah, it speaks to the whole just like, oh yeah, like we don't know how to do this. Like, I guess we'll figure this out.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just comes with the spirit of being in a band and playing that style of music. I mean, you promote your own shows, you do everything yourself. Right. So we just figured, hey,
I like that. Like you hit on earlier, where it's like everything you've done has been a byproduct of that.
Yeah, I can pretty much trace it all back. I mean, like you being here too, you know, and us having the shop, it all traces back. Like.
Right.
I've done it numerous times where I'm just sitting there with my friends where we're just kind of tracing things back, and it all leads back to just being in that band. So
right.
It's awesome. Like I have no one really to thank except like ourselves.
Right. Yeah.
We thank each other that we decided to get in to do the band. You know. Like,
and it's funny too because you can look at it from that perspective too of like the idea that, you know, for all intent and purposes, like the band was a quote unquote failure. Like it didn't he didn't make it, you know?
Yeah, we didn't.
But everything that derived from that has led you to actually making a living for yourself, and like that's a, you know.
And in that way, it's not so much of a failure.
Yeah, not at all. It's a byproduct of being like, the term failure is so harsh, but you know what I'm saying.
That's rough. That's like zero.
I didn't get anything out of this. And so you were born and raised here in Southern California?
Yeah. My brother and I were born in Hollywood.
Okay.
So that's, and then
you instantly became movie stars.
Instantly.
Right. Child actors immediately.
And we lived most of our lives in Hacienda Heights, which is about like 20 to 30 miles outside of LA.
Okay.
So you know we were always kind of like a stone's throw from LA and also Orange County, like playing at Chain Reaction and stuff. So
right.
We were definitely Southern California kids.
Sure. And what did your parents do, like as you were being raised?
My mother is a biochemist, and my dad has worked mostly at American Airlines.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like at American Airlines, like doing like logistics and stuff.
No, he was mainly in like the baggage area. He just kind of worked his way up through there. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Biochemist.
Yeah.
That must be intimidating in some fashion.
It was a little intense. I mean, it was kind of cool sometimes because she would have stories of where, like, I think in her earlier days, like when we were still really young, she was like working on like the effects and testing really, really pure and intense like illegal drugs like like LSD and all that stuff. And she had this story where one of the guys in the lab with her accidentally like somehow he got some, like it's supposed to be like a clean room, and I don't know how he did this,
right.
But he had like a rip in his coat and he got some on his arm, and he was tripping out like you would see in the movies. Like he was telling her that he saw like flowers on the ceiling, and he had to lay down because he felt like the ceiling was like coming down and moving up, and, and there were flowers on it, and he was just really
tripping hard,
not in the right place.
Wow.
But that was always like funny that she had stories like that. And
sure.
But yeah, I mean, intimidating in the way that like I have no idea what she's talking about most of the time.
Sure. Yeah. Right. And I guess it could be intimidating from the fact that, like, because obviously anytime a parent is of a certain profession, how it's like, I would like my kids to do that in some fashion.
I mean, they never really pushed anything on us. Mm-hmm. They really, not necessarily like freedom, but they really wanted us to do whatever it is that we found that we enjoyed.
Sure.
And so they never really pushed us into like, oh, I want you to be an engineer, I want you to do that. Right. I mean, of course, like they pushed it, they definitely wanted us.
They introduced it to you,
introduced us to things and wanted us to see if like it would stick, I guess, And for sure they pushed, obviously they wanted us to get a good education, and
sure.
They don't want us to just be some weirdos, but
But you never felt like, looking back in your childhood or your teenage years, you never felt that external pressure.
No.
From your parents, which is good.
Definitely not. Yeah, it was great. I mean, looking back now, I think that's a great way for kids to grow up. Just kind of, really figuring it out, but with some guidance as well. Mm-hmm. Not like just do this, do that.
Right.
Kind of thing.
Or throw you out to the wilderness.
Right.
It's like you don't feel like you.
Well, you're 18 now, so peace out.
Yeah. Enjoy it.
You're on your own.
Enjoy life. And so obviously you and your brother have always been extremely tight.
Yes.
And so, like, has that always been the case, or was that something that, like, as you grew up, you started to become closer, or did you guys, do the typical brother stuff where you fought all the time?
Definitely in our younger years, there was some fighting and whatever.
Sure.
Just that's the usual, I think. Like,
right. Roughhousing.
I think there's like a home video of me playing with like my micro machines.
Okay.
And he took a bucket, filled it with my micro machines, and just poured it on me while I was there. And I got so mad that we just started like kind of like a fist fight kind of thing, and it's all in video. It's great.
That's amazing. I love that your parents are just like, we're gonna let this unfold.
Yeah, for sure. They're just kind of standing there like, oh, this is that escalated.
Right. They're gonna laugh about this in a few years.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
But no, we've always been pretty close. I think my brother has always just kind of been a little bit more mature for his age, kind of like an old soul. So he just kind of always hung out with me and my friends.
How many years younger is he?
He's 2.5 years
younger.
Yeah. So there's definitely that gap for sure, like where he easily could have had his own friends and stuff. But I don't know, we just kind of, he always just kind of gravitated towards the older kids and would just hang out with me. And
it wouldn't feel like the
annoying.
It
wasn't weird. It was never like a weird thing that he was tagging along. Like all of my friends, fortunately, that I've always like been friends with it. Mm-hmm. I've always been very inviting. There's not the kind of people that are like, oh, like why is he here? Kind of thing.
Can you ditch your little brother? He's gonna rat on us or whatever.
Sure. And I mean, going to shows was never an issue with age really either. I mean, they're all a lot of like basement, backyard, rec center, church hall shows.
Sure.
So you're just kind of like, you just show up. If a friend can drive you, that's best.
Yeah.
You don't want to get dropped off by her.
Right. You're like, no. We'll walk there. Drop me a block away. My mom did not take me.
Yeah.
As you were going into high school and that whole process, did you find yourself? Well, for one, did you find yourself caring about high school in the sense of like, quote unquote, applying yourself, or did you find yourself just kind of trying to get through it?
I would say I was into high school for sure, and definitely trying to apply myself. I was actually in an engineering program, which is where I met my partner, Robert. I was definitely very into school, and I guess somehow maybe my parents were pretty stoked, like there, because he's like, oh man, he's really getting engineering. That's sweet.
Right.
Nice.
Our plan worked.
It worked. See, it kind of worked out.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I also, while in high school, at the same time as doing that, I got really into the music scene. And that's when the band started.
Sure.
In high school, and
Was that like towards the end, like junior, senior year?
Yes.
Yeah.
I would say for sure towards like the later half of junior year is when I think Dear Life actually started, like when we started like jamming, like, hey, like let's stop covering songs and I think we can actually write something.
Right.
And putting stuff together. So that started in my junior year, but it didn't like affect my studies or anything. I was still like going pretty strong with the whole engineering thing.
Right.
And then even as when I graduated high school and went into college, the schooling didn't necessarily take a back seat, but I think I was more interested in a different kind of schooling at that point.
Right.
And like engineering just kind of tapered off for me, and I was like, I don't know if this is for me anymore. You know, it just didn't feel right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was actually interested in they had a new major at Cal Poly at the time, and it was a music industry studies business.
Oh, okay.
Which totally fits everything I was doing for the band, you know what I mean?
Right.
Because I was so into the whole behind the scenes of everything that works behind the band.
Sure.
And like I was kind of like at the time the band's manager, and like you said earlier, like running it like a business, you know?
Yeah, of course.
So I got into I transferred to that major, and I was studying that for a while, and then eventually things picked up with our band.
Right.
So we started touring full time, and I took time off from time off.
Yeah. Use that in air quotes. Right.
Yeah, so time off from school.
And I love it. I like that parent. I mean, those, well, two words strike fear in any parent's heart, where it's like either drop out or like, yeah, I'm going to take like some time off. They're like, no, you're not. Yeah. You're just not going to go back.
You're dropping out. That's what you're doing.
Totally. Yeah, but us in your 19...
As of right now,
right.
I dropped out.
Right.
Because I haven't.
Yeah, you can say that.
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, when you may have the best of intentions when you're that age. You're just like, no, but I will be back, but I got to do this. And then, yeah, you just don't.
No, but after that, that's actually when the company started, because
started to escalate, yeah.
The band, we were doing a lot of printing at the time in our house, at the same time as having our band, and me being in college. And then at some point when the band touring stopped happening, then we had to make a decision, like, should we try this business out, or should we go back to school?
Right.
And, for us, and I think for anyone considering a decision like this, you can go back to school at any time, really.
Yeah.
And even when we were considering at that time, how many years ago, it was kind of actually a bad time to be in school, because it was still, now I think it's still really hard for college students to get classes, and
it's not easy. And it's not cheap either.
And it's not cheap. Yeah. So I think it was a pretty beneficial decision for us to start a business. And of course, at the time we were like, we're young, we can afford to make some mistakes. None of us are married. None of us have like
you can take large risks.
So we can take a bit of a calculated risk to see if something would happen. And fortunately something did happen with enough hard work and just time and
determination.
Yeah.
Two things on that. So Dear Life is your actual, like, was that your legitimate first band that you had ever played in?
Yeah, pretty much first and only, I would say. I've been in other like fun things just for fun and whatnot.
But nothing prior to Dear Life?
I wouldn't. I mean, we had like a little jam band or something like that, but
never played a show or anything like that.
Yeah, so Dear Life was like pretty much the first and only.
That's pretty impressive, because normally your first band is absolutely atrocious. Like in this, that's just. I think that's.
Well, did you listen to this?
I did listen to you. Maybe I didn't listen to your first demo, but yeah. So that you're lucky, because there are a lot of people that's just like your first band is the worst thing of all time.
Yeah. I mean, my brother has just always been a genius on drums. He was pretty much a natural, so I got really lucky with that. Just me playing guitar,
finding a drummer.
He's the next room over from mine.
Right.
We can just go to the living room and we're already jamming. So.
Why did you choose guitar?
I have no idea. I think it just, for me, it probably just.
You're like, well, I'm not going to do drums.
Yeah, I'm definitely not playing drums, because
I already got him.
He's really good at that. So you do that, and I'll do. I guess maybe that's why, because it's like, okay, well, he's really good at that.
Right.
So
and then choosing bass seems silly.
That we can play. Yeah, so we can play together. Also because, I mean, this probably affected the decision as well. My dad's brother. Before he passed away, he was a pretty like legendary guitarist in the Philippines.
Oh wow!
Like, I wouldn't, not the same kind of status, but he was like, if there was a Filipino Santana,
sure,
he was that guy.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, I understand. Like in the context of the Philippines, like he was
right.
well known.
Yeah, he was very well known in the Philippines and had this huge, extensive like collection of guitars and everything. And
wow.
Yeah, when we were young, he would come down and because he would be asked to perform in concerts here in the States, so he would come stay with us. And then he'd have his guitar, and like I'd be, I don't know how old was I, maybe like 6 or 7, and
sure.
I'd be playing Super Mario on Nintendo, and he would be just in the room watching me play video games, and he would hold his guitar,
right.
and he'd be copying the sounds of
the game,
on his guitar, and I was like,
this is awesome.
This is amazing. Like, maybe I should stop playing this thing and playing that thing. So
that's
I think eventually I got into guitar also because of that. Because it was just kind of in our family already.
Sure, yeah, it was something that you had a working knowledge for in the sense. That's cool. I
think it was, also probably because my mom was like, well, Matt needs someone to play music with, so play guitar so that you guys can play together.
Right,
and I think it just made sense.
Yeah. We can't have 2 drummers in the house.
Yeah. That's man, that would be
2 drum kits. That's ridiculous.
And I would be real terrible,
comparatively speaking.
Yeah.
And so and then the second thing was that when you were talking about how you were making that decision whether or not to go back to school or to try to start a business, I distinctly remember you, because by that time we were friends, and I distinctly remember you having those, sort of like just those existential questions to yourself, or whether or not you wanted to do this. And like I remember, like when you decided you did want to do it, like the subsequent year of just like getting the name out there and like doing everything that you were doing, it's just really, it's interesting to watch that. And like,
right. We definitely used, whatever popularity our band did have at the time. Like the MySpace page had, whatever, tens of thousands of friends.
Yeah.
So I used whatever resources we had available to us to start the company that way. So since we already had that many people following along on our page, I figured, hey, if I'm going to start a screen printing company, I might as well use that to our advantage, because we have an audience already. So and of course, like band merch, and a lot of the people that pay attention to our page are either also in bands that we're friends with, or there are other local kids that just want to start their own bands as well, and they're going to need merch. So that's how we kind of looked at it at first. Like, let's just see what we can do printing merch for our friends' bands.
Let's just put it out there and see.
Put it out there. Yeah. And fast forward how many years later, now we're printing for bands I never thought we would print for.
Yeah, of course.
There's no way that I would have ever imagined I'd be printing a Descendants t-shirt. You know what I mean? And that's awesome.
Yeah, and that will be sold at their merchandise booth.
And sure, I could have printed one and bootlegged it or whatever, but this is for real. Like,
this is legitimate.
We're actually working with Epitaph.
I was hired to do this.
To do this for real. I got the image sent to me officially.
Yeah. And so when you were doing those, soul searching moments of when you wanted to start this, like you said, your parents were obviously supportive. Like, did they understand what you were trying to accomplish with this, or was it they're just like, well? Like...
I think they've always just seen that my brother and I have always had just a good head on our shoulders.
Right.
Like, we're not going to go into something blindly and recklessly. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure they were at some points kind of thinking in their heads, like, God, when are they going to go back to school, get this over with?
This isn't practical.
This is some crazy phase and whatever.
Right.
But I don't think we ever made them nervous enough to ask to actually for them to lose it and ask us that.
Or sit down at dinner,
sure they would always
have an intervention.
For sure they would get updates from us, hey, so how's this going?
Sure. Please tell me. Yeah.
And we're always letting them know that, that it was always progressing. There was never a point where it was going backwards or anything. So they were always happy to hear that kind of stuff.
Right.
But I guess for them, they were always pretty excited to see what we were doing, just because they knew that. I think they always knew that whatever we got into, we'd never really half-assed it.
Sure.
Like, even when we started, the first time, I don't even know if they know this, but the first time that me and Matt ever made money together, was when we were in elementary school, and we were, mind you, at a Catholic elementary school.
Full uniforms and everything?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
In Beverly Hills.
Oh, even
My
okay.
parents really thought that was a great idea. Not so much, but anyway, that's why I'm filling you in, because the story's gonna be great.
Right.
So, my brother and I collected sports cars at the time, and my dad also worked at the time at Village Hotel doing valet parking. So every now and then, he would meet some celebrity, get their autograph on a napkin, and then my brother and I would bring it to school. Oh man, look what we got! Like Vander Holyfield, or like the mom from Home Improvement, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so eventually, like, the kids got used to us, like, oh yeah, they always get autographs from like major stars.
Right.
And then like one time Emmett Smith came in, and my dad, for some reason, I think he knew he was coming in, so he brought an Emmett Smith card and got it signed. Mm-hmm. We showed it to the kids there, and they're like, how much for it? And these are like I said, these are kids from Beverly Hills. Right. And my brother and I never lived in Beverly Hills. We're from Hacienda Heights.
Right. Like, we're like, imports.
So you think this is worth something, do you?
Yeah.
So that crossed our minds, and then we came up with a brilliant idea to take some of our sports cards.
Okay.
And just sign them ourselves.
Of course.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, try it. If you have something to work off.
I've always had pretty good handwriting.
Right.
And my brother had the younger classmates who had like their allowance.
Sure.
And from their parents, and needed something to spend it on.
Of course.
So I would sign, like, I forget which players we signed, but I made it up, like, I don't know, maybe like a Garrett Anderson.
Sure.
He was for the Angels, right?
I think so, yeah.
Garrett Anderson, I just signed it, like, I imagine, like, what an adult would sign it, like, big old G, scribble, A, scribble,
yeah.
And
that's
perfect. They would, like, $30 or something, like, here you go. Like,
amazing.
It's signed, man.
Right, yeah, you're like, here you go. How long did that last, and how much money did you potentially make out of that?
We probably made a couple $100.
Amazing.
And I think we got to a point, it's almost like in the mafia, like I think we're in too deep, man. We gotta stop. We gotta
I love that was like your reaction. Oh, hold on, dude.
We gotta stop doing this. Like,
this shit's too real, bro.
It's too real. Because we never actually got caught. No one hit us up about it. Like, no parents asked like the legitimacy of it or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think we just decided that before it gets to that point, let's not do that.
Before it's so far out of control.
We've made enough money.
We're tapping out.
We're good now.
That's good. You weren't greedy and didn't build it into an empire like Scarface and then die in gunfire. Yeah. And so because I had the same exact experience. I did it, except I asked my parents to sign things for me.
Oh, sweet.
It was so stupid of me, because I was like, wait, why?
Know?
Yeah. Oh, completely. Well, they knew. Well, they thought it was strange the first time. The second time, they were like, why are you having us sign all this stuff? And I was like, Mom, I'm making money at school. I'm sorry. She's like, Raymond, that's terrible. You're taking money from kids. And I was just like, oh, I didn't think of it from that perspective. I was like, I just thought this was an easy way to make money. And it's funny that's your innocent mentality, where you're just like, oh, this is great. Like, I can totally pull this off.
I'm making more than my allowance.
Right.
This is making double my allowance.
Yeah. And I wonder, it's like, obviously,
pretty sure that's how the mafia works.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. I think that's how it starts. And then maybe that's why they, I'm sure you, or maybe you didn't play, but POGs, like, I don't know. Yeah.
For sure.
And how they banned them at schools for gambling. And it's like, you're pissed off at the time, but you're just like, oh, I can see that could be a slippery slope.
Playing for keeps, man.
Yeah, dude. If you're playing for slammers, that shit gets gnarly.
No joke. I remember the ridiculous slammers that were like...
Oh, yeah. Like, they were unfair.
As tall as a stack of, those, like a stack of quarters or something.
Yeah.
Like, why?
I know, this is ridiculous.
Where do you even get that from?
Right, this is illegal. You will always win. And that's just not fair. Yeah. As the company started to grow, and you obviously started to, see that there was some, level of success, you've always made sure. I mean, especially it's like when you launched Loud and Obnoxious as being the sort of sister company to what Glad Rags was doing, and you've always made sure to always put it out there of, like you were saying, the whole DIY mentality. And obviously, you're paying it forward, and you're showing people what made you who you are, because even though that term is more ubiquitous now, it's like the DIY network, like people, like, it doesn't apply to independent music anymore. Like, do people do you see people like gravitating towards that idea, and like obviously feel that like the company has a personality behind it? Or
Yeah, I mean, I think the story behind how we started our company is always a great like conversation starter.
Right.
Especially when we're going to talk to potential new clients, like where it's a merchandise company that we're trying to like win over, kind of, and start printing for them, you know, and whatever their network of artists or what have you.
Right.
It's always one of those things. I mean, they'll always ask, like, oh, how'd you guys get started? And
right.
It's always like, well, I thought you'd never ask.
Yeah.
And we bring it out. It's like our secret weapon, you know? Like,
right,
it's one of those things that people can really latch onto. They like I mean, I personally, I like it too. I mean, I'm into the stories where people have taken literally something from nothing and turned it into something that they're proud of and passionate about, and even more so that they have a career from.
Right.
So.
And the fact that like it comes from family, and like there's so many aspects of what you do I
didn't think of that.
That it's
I
like
did it with my brother. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's you know technically in some capacity it's family owned.
That's true, and that also points to like us having values and whatnot. So
right.
Which we do.
Right. that you're not just some cutthroat, you know, fake baseball card seller.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know. Don't tell anybody. And the you know, something else that you've always been very obvious about your passion for hockey.
Yeah.
And, like, that's played such a huge part of your life. Like, when did you? Because you played it in like a traveling league, or did you? Yeah.
When I started playing hockey, when the Kings first got to the Stanley Cup in 92, 93.
And was that just like you started playing hockey because you saw that and was like it was so incredible?
My dad has always been just a sports fan in general, and you know, he definitely did not grow up on hockey, but seeing that. It's
not exactly
LA,
a Philippine sport.
No, it's definitely not. I wouldn't say that's our...
It does not come from the Philippines.
National sport.
No.
But no, just him being, you know, an LA citizen and loving all sports just in general.
Right.
I think once Gretzky came and the Kings were doing really well, like that, just all the attention, you know, he kind of just wanted to see what it was all about too. So he started watching it on TV when they were in the playoffs, and then I was watching with him. I would always just watch whatever he was watching, like he's watching a football game, basketball game,
right.
And then eventually the Mighty Ducks movie came out too. Like I think right after that.
Those are two. Yeah, it's funny because those are two pivotal things. It's like it
was huge for Southern California youth.
Of course,
I mean, that was a boom right there. Like just kids all over California just started.
Yeah, because Gretzky came, I think it was like 91, and then the Mighty Ducks movie was like 93-ish, maybe, something.
94,
something like
latest,
that.
Yeah, that's exactly when I started playing hockey, because of those two things.
That's incredible.
And so I grew up as a Kings fan, but I eventually, at some point in I ended up playing a lot of travel hocky. So my parents...
Was this during like elementary school and a little bit of high school?
So in elementary school, when I actually, they tried to put me in like karate or something like that, and they tried some other sports, and I was just like, I'm not that into it.
Yeah.
Like I went to a karate class, and my mom was in the car with me, and she asked, well, "Did you like that?" I was like, "No,
not
I really didn't."
Yeah.
I'm not like, I don't think I even tried to sugarcoat. I was like, I really don't want to go back. Don't take me back there, please. You know, kind of thing. And so eventually, when my dad was watching hockey, I was interested in that, and I probably said what every kid says, like when they're interested. I want to do that, kind of thing. And then they took me to the Pasadena Ice Skating Center, and we got some rental skates. I put them on, and they said I was a natural. Like I went out there. I didn't even try like holding the boards or anything. I just got out there and started going like I've been doing it for like at least a couple of years or something. I just kind of went around the rink already.
Yeah.
And then while we were there, there was another dad there who happened to be the coach for the Pasadena like youth hockey team.
Oh, okay.
And he saw me skating and was asking my parents like, so how long have you been playing hockey? And they're like, this is his first time skating. And he's like, okay, well give him a hockey stick because he should be playing for my team. Like, yeah, I got drafted immediately into the Mite A Pasadena Maple Leafs Hockey Club.
Amazing.
Yeah,
that's hilarious.
So he invited me to tryouts, and I got a bunch of equipment from Play It Again Sports.
Sure.
Like every kid should.
Right.
because it's expensive playing hockey.
It is. It is not. I mean, the pads and everything.
I grow out of that, like the hockey equipment in
That's
months.
True.
You know?
That's true.
You
When you think about it.
So playing against sports definitely played a key role in my hockey career.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I showed up to the tryout, and I was, I guess, a natural too with like handling like the stick and the puck, and didn't have a shot yet, but they saw that I could just like bring it up the ice, you know, like it's kind of like the equivalent of dribbling in basketball. And so I started playing, and from there, my dad would always. I think that was one of the things my dad really wanted to push me in, like, because, you know, he's a sports guy, and what dad doesn't want their son to be some sports star, whatever that sport may be. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm the same way too. Eventually, when I have a son, hopefully, he's gonna I'm gonna give him a hockey stick.
Here you go,
if
buddy.
that doesn't pan out, all right, you're gonna get a baseball.
Right. Here's some other
throw
things.
really hard.
Yeah. Let's try.
Yeah, something. Anyway, but yeah. So, you know, he pushed me definitely and I played club hockey my entire, like, hockey career.
Yeah.
And eventually played for, like, the Junior Ducks AAA team. And
wow.
So I definitely, if I had continued, I think somewhere in high school it just got too expensive for us. Like, it really is an expensive sport. And once you start, like, really excelling at it, it gets more expensive because now you're playing for upper tier teams and they travel way more. And the equipment, of course, as always, and just like team fees and everything. It can be a nightmare if the family isn't prepared for it. And at the time, I guess we weren't as prepared for it, and it's kind of the stress of paying for it, and you know.
Well, I'm sure once you became cognizant of the fact that your parents were investing so much money into it, I'm sure it was just kind of like I know this is a struggle.
I think for a little bit I fell out of love with it. I'd been playing since, from 6 years old to high school.
Right.
You know, I had just all hockey, all the time, and so at some point I think I just kind of lost that.
Sure.
Like you said, like finding out things like that, like how much this is really
the
costing,
realities
like
of it.
The reality of it. It's not just like a game like that.
Right.
I can go play whenever I want. You know. It's not,
Yeah.
So.
Did you immediately like the team atmosphere, and like did you get along with all your teammates, and like is that?
I mean, that's probably why I didn't like karate, I guess, because it's like an individual
sport,
thing.
Sure.
So I think I've always gravitated towards team sports, and just hockey to me, even just now as an adult, looking at comparing other sports, and like I don't know, just is something about hockey that I'll always
like speaks to
gravitate to. Yeah, it literally, and people always ask me like, so you were born and raised in Southern California? And
right. I know, and you're clearly not Canadian. You're like, there's a lot of things going against why you shouldn't like hockey.
Yeah,
but you do.
Yeah, but I mean, I think from when I first started, that wave of kids playing hockey up, even just through now, like the progression. There's a lot of kids now that are getting drafted into the NHL, younger than me now, obviously, but getting drafted now a lot of them are coming out of California now. So it's starting to become this hotbed for hockey.
Sure.
Which is totally, not the norm.
Yeah,
usually
definitely.
The kids are obviously either coming out of Canada or places like Minnesota,
of course,
where there's ice in your backyard.
Right.
You can go out there and literally skate.
You have the field always available to you for the most part. So, whereas out
here, not so much. Most kids, when we would for our traveling tournaments, when our teams would play out of town, like let's say there was a year when I was playing for the Riverside Jets, and we were in a tournament in Boston.
Okay.
We're actually playing in like 3 tournaments simultaneously, but the kids there, almost every team would ask us like what we do for fun, here in California, and they would assume, you guys surf, right?
Surf, right? Yeah.
You guys surf, right? We're like, no, like Riverside is nowhere near.
Yeah, we're like an hour from the beach.
It's nowhere near the beach, really, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But they just assumed that we would surf after practice or like after the game. We just
go.
And then they would assume like, oh yeah, so like when you guys surf and like go to the beach all the time, like all the girls are always in bikinis, right? That's how like everyone walks around in California.
Yeah, constantly.
Right?
Like,
yes,
right,
for sure, man.
You go to high school, bikinis. Yeah,
totally. There's no dress code. Why would there be?
Yeah, come on,
it's California.
Yeah. We're just laid back here, man. That's all.
And it's not even just the kids. Like parents would ask the other parents from our team, like, so how often do they surf? And we're like, none of them surf. We play hockey.
I love it. There's just all these conceptions about what California is, and people just, if they've never traveled there, they're just like, oh yeah, I assume that all these things are true. no, they're not.
Yeah.
And the last thing I wanted to hit on was the idea that, you know, obviously what you do as a business isn't inherently, it's not unique, you know, because obviously people can go to anywhere.
For sure.
Obviously the uniqueness that you spin out of it is, I mean, obviously the clothing company that you've started alongside of it as well. And the fact that you're obviously, like, you know, you're tying the company's story into the products that you're making and stuff like that. And so is it frustrating working in a business that obviously it can be done by anybody?
It's very competitive.
Yeah.
Especially in Southern California. I mean, you can actually drive down the street from here.
Yeah.
There's a screen printer, and then make a right, and there's another screen printer just down the street from here. But yeah, I mean, it's okay. We've always known that it's been very competitive.
Sure.
But we've been able to just find I guess you could just say our own niche, really, that it never really affected us. And even we literally started our company in the worst part of the recession.
Sure.
And, you know, of course, people that were friends with us were giving us you guys sure you want to do that? Like, kind of thing. And not that they were naysaying, but they were just, you know, kind of worried about us that you guys sure you want to start a business when everything's at its worst right now, especially for a small business.
Right.
But, you know, we went into it. I guess we were dumb. I mean, we're dumb kids.
Ssure.
But it was
But
better
you're
that
dumb
way.
kids with nothing to lose, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So it was kind of just better that way because we weren't afraid. And so we just went into it and did what we always knew how to do, and that's just find people who need shirts and print them.
Right.
So it was as simple as that. That's all we wanted to do.
Right.
And you know, we did. We found that niche that needed shirts that really not a lot of other people, I guess, were touching on, or maybe those were a lot of clients that were kind of like us, where they were tired of going to these other shops that they already knew of.
Yeah. Well, and you definitely do see, because it's like, you know, yeah, you can drive or look up online, you can see all these other companies that it's just like, you know, they're, you know, it's like they're doing T-shirts for like the local high school and stuff like that. Not to say that you're not, like, you do that as well.
For sure.
But it's like it becomes, it's a faceless industry.
Yeah. I think we catered to a niche that needed merch from people that understood them.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, for these kids in bands that need merch.
Right.
Like you said, it's faceless, so they either would submit their design to some website, pay the X amount of money, get shirts back, and might not even be happy with them.
Sure.
Because they weren't even able to talk to anyone.
Right, exactly.
You know, whereas for us, when we started, all we had was a MySpace page, and you know, for the youth culture at the time, MySpace was everything.
The thing, yeah.
So I guess maybe that was part of the reason why they were so comfortable with hitting us up. Like, we're just dudes like you.
You're easily accessible.
That's essentially what it was.
Yeah.
We're dudes like you, and you need merch, and we know what you're looking for because we're dudes like you.
Right. No,
start a company called that, Dudes Like You.
Dudes Like You. Yeah, that's perfect.
That sounds cool.
Yeah. No, I like the ring to that. No, but I think that's.
Oh wait, no, that actually could go differently. Dudes Like You.
Yeah, Dudes Like You. Yeah,
mind.
that's probably a gay porn site at this point. But no, I like because it is just from a person who's obviously, I mean, I've worked alongside companies like yours forever, but like it definitely you see the struggles that people go through with it. But then in some fashion they're always able to either keep it growing or keep at a level that's sustainable, that's like, okay, like I'm comfortable with where things at. Like, we may not be growing in the sense of like, all right, I'm going to hire 10 people next month, but we're good. Like, we're able to maintain payroll. We're able to like, and that's, you know, I'm sure that's what a lot of people struggle with small businesses, where it's just like,
absolutely,
where do we, you know, either where do we go from here?
Those are like top 5.
Right.
I mean, even for us, like, you know, we've, not to say it hasn't always been easy. You know, we've had our struggles, and those for sure are like in the top 5 of things that we struggle with as a small business. But
when was the lowest point for you in regards to like where, like, did it ever? I mean, I'm sure in the darkest of nights you were just like, I just need to walk away from this. I'm going to wash my hands of this. Was it? I mean, because usually it's within the first like 2 or 3 years that's the most difficult.
Those years were definitely difficult, but I wouldn't describe them as dark, because it was just difficult in the way that it was just us 3. There was literally just me, my brother, myself, and my partner Robert, and just us doing everything. So now, like, if you can imagine, we have a staff now of, you know, upwards of 15 to 20 people here at our shop that do the jobs that we three once did all on our own.
Right.
Obviously on a smaller scale, but still, like, we were essentially doing all those things on our own. And
Right.
so, yeah, I would say the first year was definitely pretty rough because it was just all us. And fortunately, we did have some, you know, random friends who would come in to just help out here and there, which was great. And, you know, I got to give props to them.
Yeah.
Every friend that we've ever had that's helped was for sure.
They've kept you going. Sure.
But those were definitely some hard times in the way that it's just a lot of hard work and sacrifice a lot of time, you know, but a lot of sweat. But then I guess I would say if there was ever a dark time, it probably was somewhere about like 2 years ago where we had just moved into we moved into a newer warehouse and just got our first auto, and then we were printing faster than we could, and then all of a sudden we didn't have orders, and then like we had to do this, you know, send people home kind of thing.